1288, the third Mongol invasion of Jivaet was falling apart. After months of brutal guerrilla warfare and scorched earth tactics, the once mighty army of Kublai Khan was starving, exhausted, and surrounded. Their supply lines were cut. Their morale was shattered. Only one desperate path of escape remained, a retreat down the Bạch River to the sea. But this was the exact route the Vietnamese commanders had anticipated. They weren't just letting the Mongols leave. They were leading them into one of the most ingenious and devastating naval traps in military history. The Bạch River was no ordinary waterway. It was a place of treacherous currents and dramatic tidal shifts, a natural labyrinth of narrow channels and hidden mud. The Vietnamese, led by the brilliant commander, Trần Quốc Tuấn, had studied this river for generations. They knew its every secret, its every rhythm, and they had turned the river itself into a weapon. Under the murky surface, thousands of massive iron-tipped wooden stakes had been driven into the riverbed, their sharpened points angled toward the sea, waiting just below the high tide water level. The stage was set for a masterpiece of destruction. The mastermind behind this plan was Supreme Commander Trần Quốc Tuấn. He wasn't just a general, he was a strategist of profound intellect and patience. He understood that victory didn't always belong to the largest army, but to the one that controlled the battlefield. His plan was elegantly simple, yet required flawless execution. He would use the river's powerful tides as his accomplice. The key was timing. Lure the massive Mongol fleet deep into the river during high tide, when the deadly stakes were safely submerged. Then, once they were fully committed, he would strike as the tide turned, trapping them in a watery grave. To spring the trap, a small, nimble squadron of Vietnamese boats sailed out to meet the Mongol fleet. They launched a series of sharp, harassing attacks, appearing vulnerable and reckless. Goaded by the seemingly weak resistance and desperate for a decisive victory, the Mongol commanders took the bait. Confident in their superior numbers and larger vessels, the entire Mongol fleet charged upriver in hot pursuit. They saw a fleeing enemy, a clear path to the sea, and a final, glorious win. They couldn't have been more wrong. They were sailing directly into the kill zone. As the Mongol fleet pushed deeper inland, the river's high tide began to recede. The water level dropped with astonishing speed. Suddenly, a sickening crunch echoed across the water as the first Mongol warship slammed into a hidden stake. Then another, and another. The massive, heavy hulls were impaled, torn open from below. Ships ground to a halt, crashing into one another in the narrow channels. Panic. The hunters had become the hunted, immobilized and helpless, on a river that had turned against them. With the Mongol fleet in chaos, trapped and bleeding in the mud, Trần Quốc Tuấn gave the signal. From hidden positions along both banks of the river, the full force of the Jivaet army emerged. Thousands of smaller Vietnamese boats swarmed the crippled Mongol junks. A storm of fire arrows rained down, setting ships ablaze. Vietnamese soldiers boarded the enemy vessels, engaging in ferocious close-quarters combat. The once proud Mongol navy was annihilated. Their commander, Omar, was captured and later executed. The invasion was not just defeated, it was utterly destroyed. The Battle of Bạch Đằng was more than a military victory. It was a defining moment in a nation's history. For the third and final time, the small kingdom of Jivaet had repelled an invasion from the largest, most powerful empire on earth. It was a testament to their resilience, their ingenuity, and their unbreakable will to be free. The victory at Bạch Đằng secured Vietnam's independence for centuries and sent a clear message to the world. Trần Quốc Tuấn strategy, a perfect blend of intelligence, patience, and a deep understanding of the natural environment, had achieved the impossible. At Bạch, the unstoppable tide of Mongol expansion finally broke upon the shores of Southeast Asia. His name, and the name of this legendary river, would be remembered forever as symbols of a nation that refused to be conquered. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this piece of history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more stories of incredible triumphs and ingenious tactics.